we're going to do a short meditation just to ground ourselves, and then I'm going to introduce Deon, and he's going to do an input for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to open up for conversation as a bigger group afterwards, not go into breakout rooms. So could I ask you all, please, for a moment, just to put yourselves on mute? If everybody could mute. And this is our opportunity. We've always said this Resilience Cafe was a reprieve in your day and a reprieve in your week. So what might you want to do right now to kind of just switch off from everything around you? Maybe put your phone off or your phone on silent and just become fully present with us. And let's just have a moment of sitting back in the chair, sitting up straight and taking a deep breath in and just releasing any tension with an out breath. Let's do that twice more. Deep breath in and an audible sigh out. And another deep breath in. Just for a moment, close your eyes. And just become aware of just taking a reprieve, just taking a moment for yourself in this busy, hectic time, in this turbulent time. Just become aware of sitting on this chair and being with us. And as you close your eyes, just tune into the sounds around you and your space. Just take this time for yourself. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Becoming aware of filling your belly with air. Let's take a breathe in for 4 counts. In, 2, 3, 4. And now a longer breath out for 5, 6, 7. And a deep breath in. And a longer breath out. Stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. Just drop your shoulders. Become aware of your hands. And now, if you wouldn't mind, just opening your eyes and having a good look at who's on the screen with you today. Just have a look at each other. As far as you can, just trying to tune in and connect with the people in this group today. Thank you. Wonderful to have you all, and also some very old friends on the call today. So Deon and Frederick met, I think, 45 years ago as students at the University of South Africa. And
1968.
1968?
Yes.
And that we won't say anything about the age. But Deon's been one of our most special friends in the world. He was the person who introduced Fritz and I to each other. And he spoke at our wedding, and we've done extensive work together with different clients across South Africa. And so he's a very special friend to us and been a personal mentor to me actually over the years as well. And Deon's passion in life as a Jungian psychologist, very well established Jungian psychologist in the world and leading Jung groups, also is part of the Dream Foundation and the Dream Institute, and has done quite a lot of research and study into dreams. So last week when we were together, a lot of you mentioned, we spoke about how often whatever we're processing and what's coming up manifests in our dreams, and how we process emotions and feelings in our dreams, and how that helps us sometimes to gain perspective on what's going on. So we invited Deon to share some of his research and insights into that, and then have a conversation with you at the end. So Deon, thank you very much. Over to you.
Great. Well, let me just share the screen first.
Yeah, we can see it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Great. Just a sec.
You can also put it on full screen. You did have it on full screen and then something else popped up.
Is it on full screen now?
No.
I just did it on presenter view.
It's okay. We can see it okay. It was, just do what you did in the beginning again. Just share it again.
How's that?
It's not big, but it's fine. We can all see the slide. I think it's okay.
Okay.
Mm.
Right. Well, thank you. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for the nice intro there, Sharon. Lovely to see old friends like Hanley and Pierre, and of course Frederick and Sharon as well, and all the new friends from all over. Lovely to see you all. Looking forward to the session. As Sharon said, I'll do kind of a 30-35 minute input. You've got some practical guidelines on the handout, which I will just breeze over, and then basically show you the path that a dream takes through the brain, because that shows us a lot about what dreams are, and also how one can understand them better. A quick question: can you all unmute for the moment? And I just want a yes and no. Did you dream last night? Yes or no?
No.
Yes.
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 Okay. You can go back to mute for a moment. And of course, you know that was a trick question, right? Because we all dreamt last night. And we all dreamt for about 90 minutes, if you had a fairly good sleep, for about 90 minutes. And what's interesting is that gives you about 550 hours per year that you dream. 22.8 days, 1,700 days of an average life that you spend in dream state. So it's about 4.7 years of your life that you are dreaming. So there's something happening here that we need to look at, and what is it that makes us dream, and why do we have to spend so much time in dreaming? So 100,000 dreams in your lifetime. And that's why the old Jewish sacred publication said, a dream not understood is like a letter not read. So what we need to do is look at our dreams, open up that letter and read it. And what is that letter saying? Because you're getting 100,000 of them in your lifetime. Some of us have a few years left, so we won't get 100,000, maybe 20,000 or so. But let's see how we can open that letter or these letters and understand them better. Because most of them are unfortunately or fortunately visual. So over 90% of our dreams is mostly in visual images. So you have to decipher that image. You have to be able to look at it and see, okay, now what is it saying and how is it talking to me? Anyone that can quickly tell me, unmute and tell me, what is the function of this blue chalk? What does it do? Anyone from your long lost memories and your days in pubs?
It stops the ball from slipping off the end of the cue. It provides grip.
So Colette, your long lost youth, it stops the ball from slipping. So there's something special about that powder that makes it hold on to the ball, right?
Correct.
But does it hold on to the ball to such an extent that it doesn't let go of it?
No.
So it's a special kind of chalk that holds on and releases. So
Yeah.
it makes for a firmness and a release at the same time, simultaneously. You happy with that, Colette?
Yeah.
Okay. 18 months after my wife passed away, I had a dream one night. So this is 18 months after she passed away. And there were multiple images in the dream, but kind of towards the end of the dream, she handed me a blue cube, a chalk cube. And these are some of the other images that were there. And they all had to do with holding on and releasing simultaneously. There was a pole jumper in the dream, a jogger with feet on the ground, golfers releasing and holding on. All the images had that same theme of holding on and releasing at the same time. Now, as you know, when you do lose somebody through death, that is the big dilemma that you're sitting with a year or 18 months after someone passed away. What is it that you hold on to and what is it that you release? And Carl Jung said, all dream images are important in themselves, each one having a special significance of its own, to which indeed it owes its inclusion in the dream. So each and every one of these images had this dilemma, this central theme of holding on and letting go. The dynamic interplay that you have, that you're sitting with when you've lost somebody through death. What do you hold on to? Memories, maybe some artwork, maybe some things that she left, ornaments or whatever. What do you let go of? And those choices you have to make in order to move on with your life. And that is what that dream told me that night. So this beautiful symbol of blue chalk was indeed a symbol that was rich in meaning. And if you look at the Greek word symbol, it comes from symbolon, meaning together that which has been thrown. And it comes from an old myth where two friends have a coin together and they were going to be separated, and they break the coin in two and then separate, so that when they ever meet again, like Fritz and I, after 50 years, they can bring the two parts of the coin together. They can throw it together, and that'll be a symbol of their friendship, symbolon. It's a beautiful term there. And this blue chalk was indeed a wonderful symbol with some deep meaning. And as Carl Jung said, night after night, our dreams practice philosophy on their own account. There's some wisdom in dreams. Did you know that Mendeleev's periodic table came from a dream? He said, I saw a table where all the elements fell into place as required. And awakening immediately, I wrote it down on a piece of paper. So dreams can bring fascinating things. The song Yesterday by Paul McCartney came in a dream with the original lyrics that said, scrambled eggs, oh my darling, you've got lovely legs. Now, if you sing that to Yesterday, I won't attempt that. Scrambled eggs, oh my darling, you've got lovely legs. I'm a bit pitchy there, but that's fine. So he ran to his keyboard and immediately just unpacked the melody and added the lyrics. But it came to him in a dream. Robert Louis Stevenson's book, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, And the sewing machine that we all use came to Elias Howie one evening in a dream. I was being chased, he said, and attacked by cannibals with spears. And then I looked at the spears and it had holes in the tips. And that was the beginning of the sewing machine. So very creative dreams can also be. And there are methods where if you do have questions and you want answers, you can actually incubate a dream by leaving that question before you go to sleep. Auguste Kekule in 1865, the structure of benzene from a dream. And afterwards, of course, he was the principal founder of chemical structure. And what he dreamt was the old Ouroboros symbol of a snake eating its own tail. And that's a beautiful symbol of wholeness. And I have it up here. You can see it to this side of my head, the Ouroboros symbol. It's a beautiful symbol of destruction and creation at the same time. And that came to Auguste Kekule one night. So a quick path of a dream through the brain, just a touch of neuroscience, because that gives us an inkling of what a dream actually is. Now, as you know, there's awake and you go through the different stages, non-REM sleep, until you get to the deepest state where you really have these large, slow brain waves. And then suddenly, every 60 to 90 minutes or so, you get a burst of between 5 to 15 minutes of rapid eye movement sleep. So your eyes move rapidly, and that's because you're seeing the elephant chasing you, and you're seeing the snake coming out of the mud, and you're seeing the cannibals after you. But those brain waves are exactly the same as the awake brain waves. So you literally wake up, but you are sleeping. And that's why they call it paradoxical sleep, with the rapid eye movements that go with it. So you're seeing images, of course, but your eyes are closed. And what's fascinating is it kicks off in the pons area of the brain, which is the most primitive part of the brain, just above the spinal cord. And it starts giving little bursts. They call it pontogeniculo-occipital bursts. And it is occipital because it links with the eyes and the visual cortex in the back. So you literally wake up from the pons area, your eyes wake up, but they are closed and you are asleep. And it's actually fascinating that the pons is also responsible for surprise. So when you are surprised in your waking state, when something new and interesting draws your attention, then you get exactly that the bursts from the pons area. So a dream is also a surprise. It's full of surprises, and your eyes move with it. And that's why it's called in Egyptian, it's called the open eye. And I think it's spelled RSWT, Riswit. And it actually means you wake up. You have an open eye. And it's fascinating, if you look at Japanese, the word yume is vision and dreaming at the same time. In the Bible also, if you look at dreams, they often are synonymous with vision. So you are seeing something, whether it's awake or asleep. In Zulu, it's ipupo, which is also you waking visions while you're sleeping. So that's for dreaming. So number one, the pons sense these little PGO bursts. And then interesting things happen, and I will give you the slide afterwards as a one-pager that you can also keep. I'll send it through. Those bursts then go to the post office area of the brain. the thalamus. And that area decides where to send impulses normally. So you're waking up, and now the thalamus has to decide where to send impulses. And look what happens now. So it sends the impulses firstly through the limbic system, which is the hypothalamus, the lower part of the forebrain, and of course the limbic structures which mediate emotion, like the amygdala and the cingulates that go over it. So you literally, it's a fascinating release system that happens. It's called the dopamine release system. And all those elements then, so you have these bursts of energy, and it filters through the limbic system, which mediates basically emotion and aspiration. There's also wanting or seeking within this system, motivation or aspiration. And then this basal ganglia has to do with motor action, but because you're sleeping, it's fictional movement. So you're dreaming and you're seeing yourself move and others move, and that is that part of the brain. So you see, you're waking up, you have emotions, you have aspirations, you have fictive movement. Now, normally in a waking state, all this massive amount of energy would then go to your frontal lobe, where you then plan, organize, and act out into the world. But that part is asleep. That part is closed off during dreaming. So where this energy then goes to is, number one, it goes to your parietal cortex, which has to do with spatial location and orienting yourself in space. Every single dream has a location. You're at a station or in a room or in a garden. There's a place, and that is that part of the brain. And then something very fascinating happens. This energy goes then to the most complex area in the brain, where the three lobes, the occipital, the visual, the temporal, the auditory, and the parietal, more touching lobes overlap. And that is the most complicated area in the brain, where these three lobes overlap. And it's actually the area of symbology and symbolism and imagery. So can you see your waking up, your emotions, your aspirations move into a location and move into a symbolic area and ends in the visual association cortex, where you have visual images and perceptions and hallucinations, not linked to the real outside world. That's the primary visual cortex over here. But number 8 is the secondary one, where you interpret the outside world. So can you see, those are the areas that are active, and these red crosses are the areas that are passive during sleeping, or during dreaming. And that's the frontal lobe, which has to do with planning and action. That's motor movement. That is receiving stimuli from the outside world, and also they're receiving visual stimuli from the outside world. So you're closed off from the outside world, but your whole inner world is active, and it's filled with feeling, wanting, aspiration, needs, and symbology and visual images. And that's what we have to look at. That's in essence what a dream is. So bottom line, a dream is internal awakening, awareness, aspiration seeking with related emotion, expressed in fictive movement in a spatial location, through symbolic or metaphoric images and visual associations. So really the essence of all of this is A dream is a visual or a symbolic depiction of our deep motivational and emotional lives. That's really what it is. And if you have a dream, this is the letter that you have to open and dip down into your motivational and emotional lives. This is a summary of the last 4 decades of neuroscience on dreaming. Hobson and Solomons and authors like that. More recently, they discovered that when you are daydreaming, so that's when you sit and just think. You're awake, but you're not sleeping. You're resting, you're not doing anything. There's little external focus. Your brain is a little bit like in neutral. And they've discovered that your brain doesn't switch off. It goes into what they call a default mode network. That is daydreaming. And it's very similar to dreaming in many respects. So that area there is definitely, it's called the posterior cingulate gyrus, very close to the limbic system. And it is your autobiographical memory, your own story. You're recalling memories. And it processes memories. It's a little bit of, there's a touch of motivation and craving in that area as well. So when you sit and daydream, you're actually recalling memories. You're envisioning the future, that little part there that's not really active during dreaming. But during daydreaming, you are recalling memories, you're envisioning the future. You're also thinking about other people and their intention. This part of the brain, they call it the medial prefrontal cortex, is also the so-called social brain, where you have empathy with others. So you're thinking about other people, you're thinking about their intentions while you are daydreaming. So it's fascinating, and the latest theory actually says, Domhoff is the author here. He says that night dreaming is just an extension of daydreaming. You're just continuing this story, this autobiographical memory into your night dreams. Some of the latest research here show, this is fascinating. Have a look at this. Now you remember this is your daydreaming brain there, where you process memories and your autobiographical story. You look at the future. They asked people, look at this image here, because it shows in a similar direction as that one. When you read stories about your core values and beliefs, that also triggers your default mode network. Exactly the same areas as when you sit and daydream. So you actually have an internal story of your own values and your own beliefs. And it's as if it's a fundamental way in which the brain organizes information when you sit and daydream and when you dream at night. Here was a fascinating bit. So just for interest's sake, when you read stories about cheating on a spouse or abortion laws, or opposing the rule of law, of to fight or not, value-based decisions, then your brain goes into the default mode network. And you kind of do internal homework about your own values. Here they found, just a couple of years ago, that if your political beliefs are being challenged, and have a look at this image once again, because it shows in the same direction as the other two that we just had. So your political beliefs are being challenged, and you are asked to defend it. So what you then do is you shut off from the external presented evidence, somebody else's beliefs, and you dip into your own personal beliefs. So, and that activates the default mode network. So once again, you go into your own internal story. You search through your own internal values and feelings and aspirations in order to establish yourself and your own belief system through your feelings and aspirations. So, in essence, dreaming and daydreaming are your life stories filled with emotions, aspirations, and valued beliefs. And the one just continues into the other one. So the handout that we gave you, just a quick breeze through that, various options. There are literally dozens of options of looking at dreams. And by the way, I will give you that one slide so that you have it available. So there are different options, dozens of options. I gave you a few of the ones that I found most valuable. When you look at your night dream, in the light of what we just said, 3 questions. Can you maybe decipher the emotion portrayed by the visual image? Is there a feeling behind it, like the blue chalk? What is aspired to, needed or wanted in the dream as a whole? And maybe why this dream now in my life? Just those 3 questions, ask them to yourself when you've had a dream. The 101 basics of dream interpretation. Yes, we're busy with an interesting project at the moment of pandemic dreams. And we're harvesting pandemic dreams from all over the world. And it's fascinating that you also have the symbolic images like bugs and tidal waves and people swimming in pea soup and rabid dogs and poison gas. You know, those are all obvious symbols of your boundaries being penetrated by this virus. What's interesting is that the people on the front line, and that matches with soldiers on the front line during war, their dreams are much more realistic. The emotion just comes out straight and direct. It doesn't filter through all these symbolic areas. So the people on the front line currently, they dream more realistic scenes of ventilated decisions they have to make and bodies and that kind of thing. So the emotion comes through really raw, which is interesting but traumatic for them. And in the light of that, I want to just show you this bit of research. Like we all have high emotion at the moment, high affective tone. Just look at that bottom part of the slide. If you've had trauma, there are 2 things about a trauma, 2 aspects. The one is the memory, and the other one is the emotion behind it. And this study has shown in a sleep lab that as you sleep and you have REM sleep and dreaming, that you actually discard and process the emotion around the memory. So that obviously with a trauma, you still have the memory. The memory never goes away, but your dreams, your night dreams assist you to get rid of the affective load that goes with the trauma. So in essence, dreaming is really a mental health activity. And that is why we have to open that letter and have a look at it. Sometimes they say it's not even necessary because it happens automatically. But for our own consciousness, for our own growth, it's also interesting and fascinating to understand some of our dreams. So we had option number 1. Option number 2 on your handout, and I'll just go quickly through this. You can have a look. I find this very helpful. This is a dream I had recently. I'm at a conference and colleague Margaret is sitting there. She relaxes on the veranda. There are bees in a beehive nearby, but Margaret is very anxious that one of the bees will sting her, and there are golfers playing on the other side of the fence. That was my dream, and it was at a conference. What you then do is you just underline on the left the words that are most impactful to you. So you write down your dream, underline the key words that kind of, or short phrases that impact you. And then the next step is you have a quick free association. What does that word or that image evoke in you? And that's what I came up with. And then what you do with these words that you just associate with is you just write a short paragraph, a short story. And here's my story of that time. My life is full of work and responsibility with very little work-life balance. Colleague M had work-life balance. Everything for me is work, work, work. I have to care for the queen bee, which was my mother at that stage. And we had to care about her in a care center and monthly expenses and everything. And if I get infected with this work, 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 it'll have a negative impact on me, and I must make time for fun and relaxation. The golf is on the other side. So that was the key message of the dream, and I had to listen to it, and I took a week off when I came back from the conference. Listen to the dream. And as someone said, can you see all the images in that dream? Basically, I had one message, that you are overworked and you are tired and you need to relax. That was really the one key message. And that is what dreams do. Every image in the dream almost carries the same image or the same message, the same emotion, the same aspiration in it. I'm moving towards the end. Just some of the other theories that here's some theories from Europe where they say that dreams are like threat simulations or social simulations, because over 70% of your dreams are negative emotions. But in your daydreams, you also sometimes create scenarios, sometimes worst case scenarios. And this is what Ravonso and his colleagues are saying, that our dreams are like simulations, like pilots where they have to simulate, put themselves in a simulator and develop skills from that. The theory here is that your dreams are virtual simulations, your daydreams as well, that put you into situations and you try and work through it, you try and rehearse it, just like a pilot would do in a simulator. So a last option, 2, on your handout, you can do it in artwork. These are some of the artworks that was at the recent Dream Conference. You can see how this figure over here had to unravel this heap of stuff. You can just imagine what he must feel like. That's what the dream was saying to him. You are confused, buddy. You are overloaded. You need to take one thing at a time. So wonderful images. If you're an artist, you can put a dream into picture format. And sometimes it gives you a different perspective on the dream. One method that I found helpful, that I did with a blue chalk at the beginning, was describe its aspect to a Martian or to an alien. They don't know what this blue chalk is. So what is the function of that? And how would you describe it to a Martian? A recent colleague of mine dreamt a lot about doors one evening in a dream. And I said to her, describe the doors what is the function of a door? A Martian doesn't know what a door is. And she said, well, it's to open up and close down, and it's a boundary that let people in or out. And then there was this long silence, and she realized her mother is visiting her from Greece, and her mother is interfering in all aspects of her marriage and family life. And she has to find boundaries. She has to open what needs to be opened and what needs to be closed. So I closed down. A dream not understood is like a letter not read. Please open those letters, read them, understand them if you can. As Kekule said, find the truth. Your truth in the dreams. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that's what we do with our dreams. Thank you. Over to you. I'd like us to have some discussion on this.
Thank you so much, Deon. That was beautiful. I got goosebumps with some of those beautiful examples and stories. It's really very, very wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I'm wondering if I could quickly just read out the questions that are on the chat to you, Deon, and then we can open it up for further conversation. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Sure.
I was going to ask Deon to stop sharing so we could see the faces. And yeah, Sharon, shoot, because I was going to ask some of the first one, I think, came from Ash about when we actually catch ourselves acting out in a dream or waking up and doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can sometimes be very dangerous. There's actually a syndrome, and they have to treat people for that, where if there is leakage into the frontal lobe and you start acting out your dream, you can literally, if you run away, you can run into a wall or something like that and bump your head. Sometimes there's sleepwalking, where just a little bit of that leaks into the frontal lobe and you actually walk while you're asleep, but there's still some awareness of your environment, so you don't act it out as directly as that one particular syndrome, where you can literally damage yourself if you run away from a wolf that's chasing you or whatever. So they normally, because it's a neurochemical thing, they normally treat that with antidepressants, even anti-anxiety medications, so that there's a little bit of a blockage, that the emotions don't leak so severely.
Thanks, Deon. And then we've got a question about how does melatonin impact the dream process?
Yeah, melatonin helps one to sleep and sleep deeper in a way, and often get sooner to sleep. The dreaming process isn't influenced by that. There's kind of a natural rhythm to dreaming, and you still have those dreams, sometimes with melatonin. So you would still have your 90 minutes of dreams at night if you have a normal 7 to 8 hours. But the melatonin would maybe sometimes make that you don't remember your dreams because you sleep so deeply. And most of the dreams also occur early in the morning, because you literally, from 4 o'clock onwards, your brain is preparing to wake up. So you are waking up, literally, and that's where you have your highest frequency of dreams. So if you're still sleeping very deeply at that time, then you won't remember your dream if the alarm clock suddenly goes off.
So does that mean you're more likely to remember your dreams that happen in the early morning compared to those that happen during the earlier parts of the night?
Yes. Yeah, those early in the very first dreams you have, you often don't remember. If you want to remember your dreams, even those early ones, because they found in dream labs that they are the most curative in terms of emotional processing, because you're still close to the day's events. So that very first dream is a spillover. And if you want to remember that, just intent that you want to remember your dreams, say that to yourself, put a pen and paper next to you, next to your bed, and get into the habit of writing down your dreams. And even in the morning when you wake up and you didn't remember a dream, write down what you feel and physical sensations and emotions that you have as you get up. Jot that down in your journal, because that gives you access to that part of your brain. And pretty soon, within a few days, you will start remembering your dreams, and even those first ones at night. And if you can just jot down a key word or two of those dreams and then go back to sleep, they will come back to you when you wake up.
And this is why it's important not to answer WhatsApp 7 minutes after you wake up, because
Absolutely.
you'll totally disconnect from that sacred space. Yeah.
The research shows, I mean, you had that session last week, how important sleeping is. Mm-hmm. But going to sleep early and having those early dreams are even more curative. And that you shouldn't have this blue light in your bedroom watching TV from the bed until 12 o'clock at night and that kind of thing. And they're doing, you know, those blue light filters now. If you really have to work late at night on your computer or whatever, you put those yellow glasses on and it filters the blue light. And then at night when you get up as well, there's a little torch that one can use so that your brain doesn't wake up to bright light, but stays in that sleepy, deep sleep mode.
And what is the impact of sleeping tablets on dreams?
Sleeping tablets also can not really suppress the frequency of the dreams, but your remembrance of it. So you do still have the dream cycles, because that's an absolute natural cycle. And that's fascinating, because if they deprive you of that cycle, and that was the early dream studies, where the minute you start having in the lab rapid eye movements, they wake you up. So they deprive you of the dream. Then you go back to sleep, and the minute you start dreaming, an hour later, they wake you up again. Within 56 hours, you start dreaming while you're awake. You start hallucinating, and it's called the rebound effect. So it's absolutely, there's a physiological and a neurological necessity in dreaming. It is there as an ancient survival mechanism. And if you deprive people of that, as you deprive them of sleep, it is not good for mental health at all.
Shall we open up for any last questions? Just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Perhaps while we're just waiting, Deon, so I know a lot of people get a bit upset by some of their dreams. What would your advice be around holding too tightly? Because dreams are not literal, right?
Yeah. Well, they're not literal, but they are a narrative of possibly your life. So a nightmare might be your own anxiety, your own fears that you have to face. What is it I'm afraid of? What is it I'm anxious about? And sometimes it helps if you cannot decipher an image and it's confusing, just remember the image, write it down on a little card and walk with it throughout the day. Just meditate on it every now and then, and it might become clearer. But yeah, it is just a dream, but it is a dream filled with your own autobiography. And that is why you have to do homework about the why do you have it now in your life, and what is it saying now about your life?
Thank you. Jennifer, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is so fascinating. I'm so interested in all this stuff, and I've often wondered about my own kind of sleep and dream patterns and recall, because I dream quite vividly. You know, I remember them frequently, and I can go into a dream, you know, in quite a short space of time, like, you know, in a yoga class, and the 10 minutes at the end, you know, I can fall asleep and be dreaming in that. And also I can, if I'm in I wake up in a dream, I can, you know, like go to the toilet or something and then fall back into the same dream. And I was just wondering whether any of that meant anything, because I've often wondered.
Yeah, some studies show that some people have what they call thinner boundaries between the upper part of the brain and the more emotional part, and also between themselves and their outside world. And some have thicker boundaries. So thinner boundaries literally mean more access. And you can go and have a look at Hartman's research on this, that people with thinner boundaries have more access to their inner world, but they're also more sensitive to events and happenings in their outer world. And people like that would dream more or remember their dreams more frequently. And we have actually found now with pandemic dreams that there's a 30% increase in dream recall. So people remember their dreams more these days, and that's because we are more anxious, so our feelings are at the surface, and we sleep lighter, we don't sleep so deeply, and there are more emotions during the day, and we wake up earlier in the morning, and that's why we recall all these dreams more vividly. So we literally, because of the pandemic, because of the anxiety, our boundaries are not as thick anymore as they used to be, literally between the outer and inner world, and between our cognitive and our emotional areas.
Deon, does that mean that there's a dream collective, that there's a collective consciousness that can impact global dreaming?
Yeah, Jung talked a lot about that you get personal unconscious dreams, and then you get dreams for your family or your tribal kind of dreams. And the Native Americans were great with that when people dream a tribal dream, they share it with the tribe because it has significance for them. And then you can have the so-called collective unconscious dreams, which really we all share, and where you have these big dreams full of archetypes in Jungian terms that we all share, full of luminous spiritual kind of images, the Earth Mother, and beautiful, fascinating archetypes like that.
Hanley had a question.
And so did Colette, I think, and Claudius.
Hanley, you go.
Just
Hello,
quickly.
Anneli, good to see you.
So good to see you, Deon. Deon, premonitions or predictive dreams. In my family, my grandfather used to dream things and they would happen. And my father had the same thing, and I sometimes have it. And I've got to tell you, I don't always hope that all my dreams come true. And usually they've related to death, but sometimes they relate to people I haven't seen in a very long time. So I will think about them and see them the same week. With my father and grandfather, it's usually related to death. Literally, and it's happened to me 3 times, a week before or even a day before I hear that someone has died. I dream it, and I dream exactly what has happened. My father too, and my grandfather had the same thing. So as I say, it's quite disarming because I don't always hope that my dreams will come true.
Yeah.
Because they're so strange.
Yeah, they call it prospective dreams. And that field of research I'm not too familiar with, but the whole thing about a common field that we can all share and that you pick up something, especially from people close to you. I sometimes make more sense of a prospective dream that you actually pick up signs and signals from telephone calls, from little non-verbal behaviors of people, but and you pick up those signs and signals, and that says to you, if this continues, then that pattern will happen.
Right.
So in that sense, it's prospective.
Yes.
But you also say sometimes you haven't seen them for a while.
Yes, that's a new thing. I think of someone and then they show up. It's quite nice.
I have that too. I have that too. And I'm conscious of time.
Claudius?
Because those of us that need to leave at 2 o'clock, we don't need to leave straight away. So if you can linger, please do. But I don't want to abruptly just see people drop off, and we haven't had a chance just to thank you for joining us today. And there seems to be a lot of interest, Deon. So I think Sharon and I will speak to you about possibly when we reopen the cafe after we've had a break, perhaps we can invite you back. But we'll speak to you about
then do some dream processing in
that's
group setting.
Yeah, we could actually try these beautiful thoughts that you've put out on the handout. So so if anybody needs to drop off, please do. And feel free to email myself or Sharon if you want a link to the recording to watch it again, or a copy. We will send the slides. Thank you, Deon, that you promised to share with us.
Yeah, and Celine, I'm going to have to drop off for it too, but thank you everybody and have a wonderful break, and I'll see you after the summer holidays. Thanks, Deon.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
I'm
Happy
still
dreaming.
available for a few minutes, that's fine.
Happy dreaming.
But thanks for attending, and happy dreaming. Open up those letters. Claudius, you wanted to say, lovely to see you, Claudius.
Hi, Deon. Yeah, good to see you. A long time. Two thoughts. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Two thoughts. The one is you emphasized visual dreaming. But in my experience, a lot of my dream is about lecturing, about talking, about rehearsing entire lectures or offering entire lectures. So there's one aspect. And the other aspect is music, where I actually hear music in the dream, to the extent that I once had a download, which I captured in notation afterwards. And I've actually had that published. It's already, I've got the music. So a strong auditory capacity that I've had in dreaming, but it's almost as though it's rehearsing for the future.
Yes. Interesting point there. I think it can also link to your usual style of doing things. You know, that you might be a more auditory style, and the way you think when you daydream is also to talk to yourself.
Yeah.
And even when you read, perhaps you read out loud to yourself internally. So you might be an auditory reader. And so your temporal lobe is actually more developed and more active than maybe the visual lobe or the parietal one. And therefore it's your style of learning and your style of being. And at night, in your daydreams, when you read, and in your night dreams, it's more auditory than visual.
Thank you. Philip, you've been very patient.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deon. I've really enjoyed listening to you. I've had an intuitive sense of what dreams meant to me over many, many years, but hadn't researched it. So it was interesting to hear what you said, because for me, and I'm just talking about modalities there, auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, I'm very kinesthetic. I feel a lot, very much an empath. And for me, dreams became apparent a couple of decades ago that they were primarily for me to do with emotion. And so what I got into the habit of doing was to, when I woke, was to go to my body and be cognizant of what I'm feeling. And then regardless of the story encapsulated within my dream, I'd go back to the last time I felt that feeling. And often it was the trick, it was the aha point. It was the, right. That was the experience that I didn't complete. That's the experience most relevant to me that I didn't fully emotionally experience. And it's like my brain was re-feeling and expressing the emotion that was not fully expressed at the time, and sometimes wrapping a story around it that had nothing to do with the emotional experience that I had. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And it was just fascinating to hear a degree of validation that my intuitive interpretation was probably more right than not.
Yes, I like what you said, Philip, will say, because it's almost as if you're sensing. Is it Gendlin, that method that he uses and researched a lot, the sensing method, that you dip into your kinesthetic self, and that also gives you access. And it's also very much related to emotional intelligence, often, to have the vocabulary for your feelings and for your physical sensations, to be able to describe that. The handout that I gave you, that embodiment technique, will work very well with you there, where you actually embody the different elements of the dream. You put yourself into the dream character, like a very busy business person last year dreamt about one of those little worms that go onto a branch. I don't know if you've ever seen it, that just goes very slowly like this. And I asked him to embody that. And he said, gee, that must take such a lot of patience to be able to do that slow movement. And he suddenly realized that he is just this person that's always in a rush, always on the go, never has quiet time, never gives himself, like you, Philip, time to just dip inside and sense kinesthetically. So this image was such a potent thing for him to remember and to take into the boardroom and to take into meetings. That's embodiment of the dream.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ellen or Elaine, I'll unmute.
Alan, nice to see you. All the old friends.
Please unmute yourself, Elaine. No, you need to unmute yourself. I'm not able to do it from my side. There we go.
Hello, Deon. Nice to see you. What is the impact of lucid dreaming? Is it good? Is it bad?
Sorry, Alain, I didn't hear.
What is the impact of lucid dreaming?
Oh, lucid dreaming. At the International Association for the Study of Dreams, they have an annual conference, and there are about 7 streams running simultaneously. You know, lab studies, anthropological studies, clinical studies, and one of the lines is lucid dreaming. And so people develop the technique, and it can be easily, you can train yourself how to do it. LaBerge is the author that started with that on lucid dreaming. And he has some practical tips on how to do that. So while you are dreaming, you have set up some signals before the time that shows you or show you that you are dreaming, and that you can now wake up while you are dreaming and participate in the dream. So you literally then have a lucid dream. So you're going along with the dream, but you are awake. So it's a little bit of a more intense daydream then, because it has the emotions and the deeper aspects involved. And what they find is that you can actually dialogue with your dream characters. So Celine, you mentioned earlier that sometimes if an image frightens you, you can actually confront it instead of running away in a lucid dream. You can turn around and say, what do you want? and start a dialogue with the image. You're dreaming, but you're lucid. And that's an interesting technique. And the lucid dreamers are doing lots of research on this area. Alain, do you lucid dream sometime?
Not really, but I was curious to know if it was good for your health or if it was not so good.
Okay.
I don't know. It sounds as good as taking drugs to me. I'm keen to try it.
Because it is the dopamine release system that's being activated. So you're high on dopamine, and if you aware of this and awake, then it's quite a trip.
Does anybody have a question? If not, I have one. Deon, I've never had this happen to me, but on Sunday, 2 friends in opposite ends of the world had a dream message for me.
Wow.
I don't know how to explain, like, how does that work? And the message was similar.
Very similar messages.
On the same night, first time in my life, 2 people in the week that I'm hosting with Sharon Yu. I don't know, like, is that quantum?
Well, you give me goosebumps, Celine.
Yeah, well,
that's amazing.
I know.
So you see, it's possible that, you know, you're busy with the theme of sleep and last week and anticipating the one on dreams, and you sharing that, and your friends know that, and that activates, you know, it acts like prompts, and that can activate the dreams across continents. But the IASD also have so-called cyber dreaming, where somebody keeps an image in mind in Canada, and some of the other members all over the world that night note down their dreams, and then see if it matches the image that the person held that night. And it's quite interesting. You know, one can obviously look for correspondences. Like you look at a Rorschach and you say, yeah, you see there's that. But it is quite fascinating.
There's a good movie with Joe Clooney called Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm recalling that. Colette, is your hand up?
It is, yes.
Go for it.
Okay, my question is, with relation to what you just said, spirit coming into dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you sit on that, Deon? Do you believe in that? Is that something that you believe is possible? Could that be something that Celine was experiencing within that moment? Is that one of her angels, her spirit guides, is a way of getting a message to her through her 2 friends?
Yeah, as I said earlier, my processing of that would be more from a Jungian point of view. So I would say, because the archetypes are of a very spiritual nature, they're very numinous, and your dream is full of technicolor and full of wonderful otherworldly images, and often very mythical. So yeah, that would be my take on spiritual dreams. That it would be more the archetypal, mythical realms of our being.
Yeah, cool. Good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes you dream about somebody. If you think in terms of spirit, somebody that has passed away.
Yeah, I have.
Years in your dreams, that also happens, like my wife and so forth.
Yeah.
I would say it's my own. I maintain I still have a relationship with her.
Yeah, definitely.
The relationship just changes, so I don't think it's her spirit visiting me. I think it's just my relationship with her and what I associate about and around her.
Oh, okay, because about 12 years ago, after my nan died, she presented herself within a dream of mine, and my nan actually had several strokes in her life and lost her voice. She lost the power of speech, and soon after I had the dream, I spoke to my mum. I actually had the dream twice, and my mum had exactly the same dream once, and it was literally my nan just stood there talking to me, and it was like she was informing me that she had her voice back and that all of those ailments, you know, all the sort of nasties had left her. But my mum had the exact same dream, which I found very curious.
Mm. So it can also be, I'm sorry to kind of be a little bit more clinical and realistic about that. It can also be a hope or a wish from your side that she has her voice back. And what would she be like with her voice back, you know, that kind of thing. So your own aspiration, your own hope, your own wish to restore who she was, which we often daydream about as well. When something has happened, we sit and think, what if, and what could have been, and what can be.
Yeah, we do.
Well, my aspiration is that we get to meet again sometime and continue this conversation after all of us have had chance to dream.
Yes.
Deon, I wish you were in my living room and I could offer you lunch and dinner this evening. We could just talk for hours. I'm sure Deon and Hanley, by the way, has helped me on my dream journey. So as a personal one-on-one coach, Hanley, you've been remarkable at helping me feel like I actually can use my dreams.
Great.
And there's also a podcast called This Jungian Life, which perhaps Hanley and Deon you know about. I listen to them and they always analyze a dream at the end of each podcast. So for 15 or 20 minutes, you can listen to other people's dreams being deciphered by 3 very interesting characters. And Deon is just as interesting as those 3. So that's been interesting. Yeah. But sadly, we have to call the cafe to a close. Not sadly. I think it's wonderful to end on this very, what in the past would be called, I think, woo-woo topic. And it's not. No. It's incredibly important in terms of calling ourselves human beings. So thank you to all of you. I mean, I'm looking at, all of you. I mean, like, you know, there's some regulars that have been here. I think every time, Jim and Anna, you're on the other side of the world and you're up at 5 a.m. Thank you. Thank you, Fabrice. Thank you for all the newcomers, Colette, Sally, and Deon, a very big thank you to you.
Well, thanks
you and
for
Sharon for inviting me.
Thanks to all of you who stayed and who listened so patiently. Appreciate it.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. And
thank you.
Sharon or myself, one of us will share a thank you note when we get the handout from Deon. Thank you for that. Good. Happy lucid dreaming and tripping, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye.